section of this session. There's many different tools of grooming. You're grooming for two general purposes. One is for body condition of the horse, so we can inspect the horse by what we call palpation, which is our hands on the horse. You can check to see if it has any nicks or where another horse has bit it or done something to it. And again, that's their social behavior of how they're going to move each other around and establish their herd hierarchy. Check for ticks, especially with riding outside in the wintertime, the fall and the springtime. You want to check to see if there's any sort of parasites on the horse, which just happens from being outside. And then we're going to ride the horse, we're putting a saddle pad on the horse, then the saddle on the horse, then the girth comes on the belly of the horse. We may have a breast collar on the horse. These are all pieces that we're putting on the horse that can create some rubbing and some abrasions to the horse if they're not fit correctly. If there's a piece of dirt or maybe say a burr from under here and I'm rubbing with my breast collar, I'm going to create some irritation to the horse, and we don't want to do anything to the horse that's inappropriate. So we want to make sure the horse is clean, especially in the spots that we're going to be putting things onto the horse, or we call them tack. So to get the horse clean, there's several different sort of brushes. There's many different forms of what we would call a curry comb. These combs here are used in a circular motion to bring the hair and the dander, which is your dirt, sort of a natural dander it's sort of your dandruff and things like that on a horse. But what it does is creates a natural blanket from the elements from the horse. So if it rains and stuff, it doesn't really get just to the skin. It's sort of a little bit of insulation to the horse. Whatever. So the curry comb is usually a softer comb, but there is a metal curry here. But it's a softer comb that you would use in a circular manner to bring up the dirt and dander. So you're trying to get this off of the horse's back and bring it more to the surface so we can remove it. And if you see, Silverax really likes this. Most horses do if it's done correctly. And so you're going to do this in a circular manner to bring all up the dirt, dander, sawdust, whatever the horses are laying in. And after you do that portion of, if some hair is coming off, they're shedding out from their winter coat to their summer coat. After that portion, what I like to do is then I would get into something like the metal curry. The metal curry, when you're using something like the metal, non-rubber, you want to go the way the hair lays. So the hair will have its different patterns. Here at the hip, it sort of comes up and around this way. From the withers, which is the high point from the shoulders to the back, or from the neck to the back right here in the shoulders. Whatever way the hair goes is the way you want to use this brush. Sort of brush some of this excess hair off that we just brought up with the rubber curry comb. After we get through that portion, we get into some of these bristle brushes. Depending on the time of year, it sort of depends on what of these brushes you'll use. Right now he still has on his winter coat, so I don't mind using a stiff brush. If he just had on his summer coat, the stiff brush might be a little bit too scratchy on his back. With the horse's body language, they will show us what brush is appropriate to use on the horse. If I was to use this brush, which is the stiff bristled brush, and the horse sort of, shows me through his body language that it's uncomfortable, I wouldn't use that anymore. And that's why I said the horse will show us what we can use. But with the bristle brush, use it in a sweeping manner, all right? Sort of flicking things off of the horse to get the dirt and dander that we've brought to the surface off of the horse. If you notice, I'm not just going some long sweeps to it, because again, I'm trying to flick off the horse the dirt and the dander that I already brought to the surface. These are sort of the finishing brushes, the last couple stages that you would use when you're properly cleaning the horse. This is a soft brush. This would be the last stage that I would use if I was trying to brush my horse thoroughly all the way through. And again, you use it in sort of a sweeping pattern, and the pattern is to follow the way the hair lays. And again, you'll be able to see the way of the hair, how it sets on the horse. So right here in the hip, I'm going to come out this way, and the hip here comes this way, the butt's going to come off this way, coming from the back comes here. And you're just trying to get all the debris that could possibly be off the horse so they're more comfortable when we saddle and put the pads on. Another thing which Jolene had talked about a little earlier with Aramis is that it sort of spreads those oils of the natural sort of coat. It's a defense that the horse has from elements, from rain and things, that those oils will allow the rain to run off and a lot of the snow or things run off. So you always want to keep those going throughout the horse. And these brushes here will really help spread the oils from the horses to create that nice balance of their coat.
And so some of the things that we talk about when brushing with our horses is we talk about some sensitive areas that they could have. And so we always like to start off with a soft brush for their face. They don't tend to get too rough and dirty on their face, so a soft brush will help spread the oils or get anything around their eye, down their nose. If we do need to get something a little harder, we can get a curry comb that isn't metal, or the prongs aren't too far spread out, so we're not really hurting or not bugging them. You have a cat down here. And so a spot that they will get pretty muddy will be up by their ears. So you would just angle it, and you can see that he says, I don't have dirt right there right now, so I prefer you not to brush me. So I'm just going to kind of do some pretend brushing, please. And so I could rub here. There we go. So that's a spot that he would prefer, up here where he itches, or around the back of his ears, or on his cheek. We kind of want to leave the more sensitive spots of their face to a softer brush, and just work at it with a softer brush rather than putting the hard brush against them. And for some horses, this area can be a big kind of don't touch me zone. So this is very soft. So where can we see, please? So if you really push, you can feel I have a lot of their bones back here or up here, and their diaphragm, and it all kind of comes to an end back here. So this is a very protective area for them that they want to make sure that they will never be hurt in. And so when it comes to brushing this area, it's from where the hair changes up here to about the back of the belly, and as you brush the belly with a soft brush, you can feel where it kind of gets thinner. So for some horses, that's an area where they're not always trusting, and so with that, sometimes it'd be a soft brush use as well. You might want to just work at it with a soft brush. If you need to get at it with a curry comb, again, just like the face, you can work softly, work around those areas. But those are some areas that some horses, either they don't like to be touched, or they're not sure if they trust, but it's just an area to be a little more cautious of. And again, how I talked with Aramis is down their legs. If they really have a lot of dirt, again, you can use a hard curry comb gently. We don't really want to push it. But most of the time, if you have a hard bristle brush, hard strokes, hard short strokes, and with these you can even, going down here, you can go against the hair and then brush it back down. But they don't have a lot of meat between their skin and bone down there, so it can be a little abrasive with a harder brush. It all depends on how you use the brush. You can use any of these brushes anywhere if you're gentle. But just to make things easy step process, we have certain brushes for certain areas. And just to make sure that the horse understands and is ready for whatever brush you're going to use in this area.
And you're always looking at the horse, and through their body language, they'll show you if that brush that you're using is something that they're okay with. And if it's not, then we need to, again, reevaluate how we're approaching the horse.
And if you notice as well, as we are brushing, so the other day with Aramis, they said an arm's length, but we're kind of at an elbow's length. We're at a point where if we needed to push them over, we can. But this way we can reach top bottom, and as we're getting down to these areas, if you notice with Silver, I'm facing his head, and my feet are underneath my shoulders like how Gary said. I can leave a hand up here. I can have my hand next to me. I like to leave a hand on them so I can feel if they are moving and if I need to move. Hi. And so this way I can do it this way, but I'm always on my feet. I never want to be down on a knee. I always need to be in this position, but if I need to step back out of the way, it's very easy for me. And with this back end as well, you want to keep your head, your goods, facing forward. Their tail, that's mostly for their tail. If that thing whips, is wiry and harsh, so you don't want to get whipped by that.
Their tail, their mane, and their forelock are their nature's fly swatters. So the forelock you want hopefully grows long enough, some horse breeds don't, that they can get the flies from their eyes. Their neck, if they shake their head, their mane will, both sides of their neck to get rid of flies, and the tail can pretty much reach all of the rest of their body, and they can pretty much put the tail exactly where they want it to swat flies. So a fly to them is an annoyance. And if they think that you are being annoying to them, they're going to tell you in the way that they have through body language, because again, they don't speak English. They're going to say to you, with the flick of that tail, I don't really like that. Can you please change what you're doing to be appropriate, more appropriate to what I think is appropriate for me? So that tail is a very good indicator of how the horse is feeling. If, like Jolene had said, if they get sort of upset about what you're doing, they'll start flicking the tail. If they really want you to move, they'll swat at you with their tail to ask you to move away from that, whatever you're touching or wherever you are, because they may not like where you are.
So that's a key point. And then obviously if we're facing back here and there's a problem up there, the only way we're going to go is face down. So here we can feel the motion of the horse. We're not going to get hit too bad by the tail. You can see a lot more under the horse. My feet are underneath me. Brush our mane and tail, we're going to start from the bottom and then work our way up. My hair is not long right now, but my hair is very curly. So when my hair was down to my hips, if you started at the top, you'd be pulling my hair out. And so it's the same thing with a horse. You want to start down and then work your way up. Get those knots down here first. So that way when you start way up here, you're not just pulling all the knots down to the bottom. Yeah, thank you. And with the mane, it can be brushed to either side. You can flip it over and do the other side. You want to make sure that you are able to get right where it grows from, because just like people, they can get a lot of dander there, just like the rest of their body. So we want to help open it up so it can spread out and get some air. Let's see.
If you don't, I try not to brush my horses' manes or their tails more than needed. Because if you pull a lot of it out, then you're taking their fly swatter away. If you don't brush it often enough, it'll become entangled, almost like dreadlocked, and then you can't brush it and you'd have to cut it to remove it. So you're always looking at their mane, their tail, their forelock to see when it needs to be maintained. But over maintenance of that is kind of not as good to the horse as you should be. Again, we're doing a lot of the brushing to where the places that we're going to have things to put on the horse when we're riding the horse, so we're not creating more pressure with like a big clump of dirt or a burr or something that's with the horse from riding around. The mane, the tail, and the forelock are one of those things that does look really nice when they are groomed, because it looks a lot prettier, but at the same time you really have to be watching out for the horse, and you don't want it to be any shorter than it possibly needs to be so the horse can use it for what it's naturally used for.
And so as we go to the tail, if you're not sure about pulling it, or if the bugs are really, can one of you actually tilt the phone so I'm in the picture? Please, thank you. So if the bugs are pretty strong in that day and the horse is really moving their tail and you don't want to exactly take their tail away, you can kind of just reach your arm out and do little strokes at a time. So here I'm starting at the top, but this top, Silver's not a breed where his mane is going to grow to the ground, or at least his tail is going to grow. Some horses' manes also do that. So the top end is generally a little bit shorter, and then as you get down here, if you want to section it off, we have oils and sprays that are specifically for horse mane and tails, because even though they may not look knotted, it's like untying a wire knot. And so you can section it off and do little areas at a time. Again, start at the bottom of whatever you section off and work your way up. Again, just like the mane, if I pull it, it's giving me a look because I'm doing this unnecessarily. But it's not going to bother him. They have a tail bone, just like most animals, all animals, and you can feel exactly where it ends. So for Silver's, right here. And so the rest of this is just his tail. Now, if you're brushing around his tailbone, you might want to be a little bit softer. You don't have to pull as hard. And they can get, just like how their mane and the rest of the body, this is an area that will get dander. So as much as you may not want to push, it's good to get in there and spread that oil out. Now you can also take the whole tail, if you're really feeling ambitious, and again, start from the bottom and work your way up. Now if they start to swat at flies, you can just give them their tail back. If you need to, step away so their tail doesn't get you. But the reason why we don't want to brush back here is because now if you're taking their tail away and there are bugs, especially back here, their last resort is they're going to start using their feet to get at those bugs. So you don't want to be in their way of moving their feet, and that still might happen if you're on the side. I take his tail, he has bugs, he's going to start stomping. So that's why I'm pulling it out to the side. I'm not just pulling it out to the side right here, I'm actually stepping further away from him, because I'm taking one of his defenses away. He's going to start using other defenses to get bugs, move around if another horse is getting too close. So again, my body is facing towards his front. I'm not facing the back of him. As I'm brushing, I have a slight angle towards the front of his body. So, what is going on out there, Silver?
So right now, Silver is trying to look towards the rest of the herd. If you had noticed, my hand was on him the whole time, so I was maintaining appropriate distance from the horse with body language from the horse. I was watching to see what he was doing the entire time. If you notice, when Jolene and I were with the horse, brushing the horse, talking about the horse, whatever we were doing, if we were looking into the camera, I'm looking at the camera, but I've almost, my peripheral vision is on the horse. But we were, if not the whole time, the vast majority of the time, had a physical touch to the horse. So even if I'm not focused visually on the horse, I can see or feel when the horse is moving around, right? And even when Jolene was standing back here with the horse's tail, she is maintaining a decent body, social distance, personal bubble from the horse. But at the same time, you're constantly watching the horse's behaviors, its ears, its eyes, its muscle tenseness. You're trying to just interpret what the horse is telling you, if he was okay with things, if he was not okay with things. When Jolene demonstrated, she pulled on the tail or pulled on the mane. Silver, with his body language, the way he was looking, his approach to his head, his ears. Right now he's trying to see what's going on behind the wall because all of his horse friends are over here. And it's a wall, so he can't see through it. So he's trying to use his other senses, his ears, his nose, everything other than his eyesight to see what's going on. But what we were doing in every single moment that you're with a horse, it is up to you to maintain personal safety. That's a personal thing that you have got to do. And with Silver, Jolene and I, the whole time, it's kind of hard for us to communicate it because we've been around horses for so long. It's secondary nature to us at this point. But when you're new to a horse, like I said in the beginning of this, you need to be thinking all the time. We are thinking, but we're just not expressing it all the time, because I've spent 30 years with a horse. Jolene spent 20 years with a horse, it's kind of worked into our skill set of being around a horse at this point. But we're always maintaining our personal safety, our personal bubble, and the personal space with the horse. We're accepting his personal space, but we're always creating and maintaining our own personal space. If you notice, we weren't here doing anything with the horse. And as I just stepped up to put my body on him, he gave a sort of look, what is going on? That was never the case. We weren't doing anything fidgeting. When we walked up to the horse, we were very calm and confident in our approach to the horse. He accepted us, and we went about our business of what we were trying to do with the horse, at this point, grooming. But what we were doing was always looking and maintaining our personal space.
And so what's happened is we've learned a secondary language, even though we've tried to teach these horses some things that, like some verbal commands, physical commands, things like that. It's all about their communication. And so just like any other animal, we love to give them praise. And so there's treats, there's different ways to do treats. We could go over that sometime. However, with a horse, they're not a dog, they're not a cat. Some cats don't even like to be held. So there's different ways to give these big animals praise. One is finding, let's see if I can find one of his very good scratchy spots. He's got a few with all this hair going, with all his winter coat going off. So there's one. He's raised his head a little bit. They will twitch their lips, and they'll do goofy faces if you really find a good itching spot. So that is one way to praise your horse. You can give him just like a dog. Give him a pat, tell him he's a good boy. It's not just the words that you're saying, it's how you say it. So if you're saying, oh, Silver, that was great, that was such a good boy, it's your energy, your praise energy, your volume. You can give them soft touches on their face, easy. And if some of the horses really like their eyes rubbed, when you rub their eyes, they might try and rub back on you. So again, it's keeping that personal space, but they like rubs on their faces, some of them like on their ears. But through all of this, what we're doing is still maintaining personal boundaries, personal space, because they're not smaller than us. If I go up to hug Silver's face, as great of a boy as he is, in any type of situation, he needs to go and look at something, he can toss me with his head. Like 60% of a horse's weight is in their front body, from their shoulders up. And so if I'm hugging his face and I'm just like in the moment, having a great time with my boy, he needs to look, I'm on the ground over there and he's running away. Or he's may have gotten me with a foot because he feels the need, like I'm blocking his vision, I'm blocking some of his ear, I'm blocking his smell, I am closing so many of his essential sensories. So if I hug his face, there's a problem. I'm not helping him or myself. So there's other ways to give praise. It's finding good scratching spots. A lot of times that can be rubbing their face. Not every horse is just finding the spots for that horse specifically. Let's see. I know Silver has one on his ear.
And if you notice what Jolene's doing, now we're just overwhelming him. A lot of the spots on him that she's itching, that he really enjoys, are spots that it's very hard for him to itch by himself. Right next to his ear. Very hard to do because it's a very small space. He doesn't really have, a tree or something that he can just go scratch that. Then it's a very sensitive place. Say he catches his ear on something, right? He doesn't want to do that. Right around his eye. If he was to do something over here and over scratch with his eye, he might injure his eye. In between his eyes, on his forehead, a horse really can't see that space right there. That's a hard spot for him to itch. Underneath his jaw, he's got two big bones, a little gap underneath there. That's hard for him to itch. Right up in here on his throat line, where his throat connects to his muscle in his neck, right there is a very hard space for him to itch, because if he over itches, he might do something to his airway. So horses are very sensitive about where they're okay to be, where they would scratch themselves. If you can scratch those places that they can't get to, that's a very good reward for the horse, and they love it.